So this is Bobby Vinton's song, Changing Genders, because it feels weird singing Mr. Lonely. Lonely, I'm Mrs. Lonely. I have nobody for my own. I'm so lonely, I'm Mrs. Lonely. Wish I had someone to call on the phone. I am a soldier, a lonely soldier, away from home, away for no wish of my own. Letters, never a letter. I get no letters in the mail. I've been forgotten. I've been forgotten. Oh, I wonder how it must be there. Now I'm a soldier, a lonely soldier. I'm Mrs. Lonely. How I wish I could go back home. So I wanted to talk to you about a very important topic. This song is just like sort of a presentation for the topic of loneliness. It's okay to feel lonely. It's okay to say, I wish I had someone to call my own. But then there's a difference between being so desperate that you're willing to compromise on every single demand you have. And you have to have a list. So I had this list of what I would have wanted in a partner. One of them was like someone who likes dogs, someone who respects me, somebody who treats me well, somebody with a sense of humor, someone who enjoys the same things I do, nature, music. So I met somebody, and first, when you meet somebody, there's an effect where it's called the romantic effect, where you project everything you want into that person. Of course, when that person is physically attractive, then it's wow. It's like that person becomes your prince or your princess, and you just project everything. So I really wanted my partner to be everything on my list. And so the more time we spent together, I said, let me see. He has a temper problem. That's not on my list. I don't want somebody who has all this an anger. His anger is completely not under control. He gets very angry and he doesn't communicate. And he says, I talk too much. He doesn't like talking. So wait, if you don't like talking, why would you seek a woman that likes to talk? Well, I'll tell you why. A lot of time, people who have communication problems seek somebody who's very communicative. And it can be okay if you respect the other person's being different than you. But if it makes you uncomfortable, then you don't have to be with that person. It's not like arranged marriage. We don't live in India. We both grew up in a Western civilizations, even though he didn't realize Israel is not a third world country. He thought Israel is a third world country maybe. And I'm like a person coming from a third world country, didn't realize in Israel, women do have a strong status. Most of the women work, they're not housewives. And he just decided to mold me into something that he wanted. And I decided to mold him into something I wanted. And maybe he reminded me of my mother, actually, with whom I had a lot of conflicts. I was very musical. I love music. I thought we're going to have like the sound of music. We're going to have kids and we're going to sing and he's going to play guitar and we're all going to sing the whole day. Well, yes, we did sing. Yes, he did play guitar. Yes, he was a teacher, I was a teacher. I thought, what could go wrong? But he had a temper problem. And when somebody has a temper problem, when they take their anger out on you, and this is something I knew from my family. My brother had a temper problem. My mother had a temper problem. Who didn't have a temper problem in my family? My grandmother had a temper problem, which means you just scream at the other person. You don't talk, and you never apologize. I never once got an apology. Sorry, I lost my temper. Never once. So I always assumed that it was my fault. So I learned very early on to accept responsibility for somebody else's feelings. If somebody had anger issues, that was my issue. If my mother yelled, it was because I made her yell. And the same thing with my ex-husband. So I found myself in hell, basically. It was controlling. He took over everything. And at first, I'll take care of you. Very, very red flag. Big red flag. So I'll sum it up for you ladies, especially ladies, because I am a lady. And it can also apply for men. But most of the problems, like I experience, are between men and women. When women choosing men and ignoring their faults. I recommend everybody to watch Married to Evil. I don't think my ex-husband was evil. I just think he had a lot of issues that he didn't deal with. And he just decided that he's just going to take a woman and make her responsible for his anger, make her responsible for his faults. Then he doesn't have to deal with his anger issues. He doesn't have to deal with his frustration. He can just blame the woman for it. And the red flags, I'll sum it up. Anger issues, number one. Nobody should take their anger out on you. You're not a punching bag for anyone. If you're angry, it's your problem. It's not your responsibility as a woman to be helping him by submitting to his issues, by tolerating it. Just leave. When somebody's screaming at you, just leave. That's already violence. And then, of course, it escalated to other forms of violence. All forms of the violence that exist. Then control. Number two is control. Why is he taking over? Why do you only have one bank account with his name on it when you are married with children? Why don't I have a credit card? Why am I not working and he's taking care of me? But not really taking care of me, but taking care of himself. He wanted children, he has children. He's keeping all his salary. He's buying himself new clothes. He's going to the hairdresser every week. You never have money for anything. Your mother has to send you things. Like my mother used to send me clothes. She used to give me money, and I'm like a married woman with children. Why is everybody allowing it and permitting it? So we lived in a society that was very traditional, where it was okay for women to stay at home. Well, they're not in the Jewish community because there it was a bit different, but the other people that lived in that country, it was okay for women to stay home and raise kids. And I was educated, I was feeling lonely, but I didn't admit it. So I spent my time watching like TV shows, and then guess what? He blamed me watching the EastEnders. I was watching the EastEnders as this British drama where people were screaming at each other. So he said, you know why you are angry, like why you're not happy? Because you're watching that show and he teaches you to scream. I didn't scream, I maybe answered him because, at first I thought, he's yelling at me, I yelled back. But then I wasn't even allowed to yell back because his temper was so bad that it very quickly escalated to physical violence. And he was a very strong guy. He was 100 kilograms, huge, tall man, very strong. He used to lift weights and he used to slam me against the wall. I had my foot broken. I had to go to emergency several times. I had black marks, but never on my face, always on my body. So it looked like I bumped into things. He was very vicious also with the children. He had a very short temper. His mother the same. She used to come and help with the kids and hit them. She used to tell me that if a child misbehaved, they used to put him in a cold bath. It's not that I came from paradise. you know. But our violence was more verbal, at least with me. My mother used to yell at me more, and that's not good either. Then I realized that I had issues with my mother mostly, not with my father. May he rest in peace. He was not violent to me. Maybe once or twice gave me a slap on the face for disrespecting my mother, but I don't remember it as a regular thing. I wasn't afraid of him, but he was very strong also. I learned not to disrespect my mother. I don't think it's right the way he behaved, but that's the way people behaved at that time. They used to hit kids. But when it came to hitting adults, there was another level that I thought was absolutely wrong. But I was in a foreign country. I didn't get any support from the police, any support from my community. The Jewish community was feeling embarrassed that this should even happen. They didn't want to deal with it. The social worker was not like, why do you have kids with him? Like accusing me. So I come for help, and then I'm being accused of being with a man who's violent. That's not what you do. When a person is experiencing domestic violence, you don't blame them because they already blame themselves. That's why they're not out the door. A woman who stays with a man who hits her blames herself. Otherwise, she wouldn't have accepted. She wouldn't have accepted it. Thing is, I thought it was my fault. I made him angry. My mother used to say, you should have food ready for him. So he was angry because the food wasn't ready. Well, I wasn't a good enough housewife. I never was a housewife. I'm not really good at cleaning or cooking okay, but I really made such efforts to please him, but I just didn't grow up in a household where women were enslaved to the house. My father did domestic chores. My father did the wash. He did the shopping. He did the cleaning, and my mother worked. And then all of a sudden I'm not working. I'm with the kids. I'm doing the cleaning and the washing, and I'm extremely isolated. And to be honest, I'm still isolated to this day, and I'll tell you why. I never found my place in society. I was a housewife too long, and then I had a hard time going back to the job market. You know, you get to be at a certain age, and it's like, and I didn't finish my teaching certificate, even though I had a master's degree, and I just couldn't find my place in the job market. Luckily, I did find it now because I went back to where I come from, and it's easier in your native land. But with all the rocket attacks and war, I still remember what it was like to have a war in your home. Your place where it should be your security was the least secure place. I felt the most danger in my home. The most dangerous person was the father of my children. The man who was supposed to protect me against danger was the most dangerous person. And I protected him at first, and then, I reported to the police when he took my baby and just ran off. Because what is going on? Why is he running off with my baby? When my baby was like 3 months old, he just ran off with her, and she was nursing. And so I called the police. My husband is gone. He took the baby. I didn't know what to do. But then he showed up, and I looked like a crazy woman. And that was his strategy. Gaslighting, making me look like I'm a crazy foreign woman. And it worked because I was very upset. When he came to my children, my maternal instincts were, why is he taking my kids? And he used to just take them. And he used to just do whatever he wanted. He disrespected me on so many levels. He had absolutely no respect for me. And to this day, I struggle with self-respect, with hating myself. I do have self-sabotage. I left jobs because I felt when somebody was just not talking nicely to me, I felt in danger. And it's funny, I feel safer in Israel than I did in the heart of Europe. I felt so that nobody would help me. When I told people that I'm getting hit at home, most people abandoned me, except my one American friend, who actually at the end, sadly, was also in a domestic violence situation, which she chose to ignore. Her husband threw her, and she had injury to her eye for life. But he said, forgive me, and he was like Christian, and they went to church and prayed, and he did take responsibility for what he did, and his family was sad. They were supporting her, and I didn't get any support. Quite the opposite. I was scapegoated, and I married a non-Jew, so I was the bad Jewish person who was making trouble for the goy, for the non-Jew. I was ruining his career he was a teacher. How dare I accuse a teacher of domestic violence? And it's funny because he was almost in prison, and yet nobody thought to fire him. He's still at the same school 30 years. He's a very quiet teacher. And then I realized, he has very strange behaviors. Now my adult children say, he has strange, Papi has strange behaviors. And I work with people on the spectrum, and I realize he has a problem very similar to people on the spectrum, which is he's not balanced. He has rage attacks. I work with children, and they can attack. I got hit, but I realize they're children, and I'm an adult, so it's easier. And I even worked with adults, and it scared me, but yet I realized they have a problem. And they have, I'm not alone, I'm with a team. But to be alone with a person who has imbalance, who can all of a sudden, and it hit you, and he wasn't drunk, he wasn't taking drugs, he was just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he would just be triggered and hit. And I realized he probably was not diagnosed. But it's weird because he can control his behavior in school. He never hit a pupil. He was known as a quiet teacher. His pupils always said, oh, he's such a nice, quiet teacher. So he could control it. And he has a girlfriend, but he doesn't live with anyone. He's alone. He doesn't even have a cat. And the reason for that is because he realizes that he can't live with other people. I live with my dog and cat. I don't think I could ever trust a man ever again after what I've been through. I realized at one point I prefer gay men because they don't seem to threaten me. And I think LGBT people also have domestic violence, but it's different. And a man wouldn't attack me. He would maybe attack his partner. I don't know. But yeah, and I don't have any women friends. I never had a good relationship with women, probably because I had a problem with my mother verbally abusing me, my sister verbally abusing me, and my sister used to hit me. We have a 10-year difference. She's older than me, and she used to hit me really, really badly, and I used to have to lie about it so she doesn't get in trouble. And so I've experienced more violence from women than men. And I get along better with women for the most part, but I don't think I could ever trust a man in my life ever again. And when I watch all these documentaries about women being in relationships where they just forgive, and it's usually people like me, people who like to help, people that have a forgiving nature. I just don't want to be in a situation again where a man will be violent to me and I'll be denying it because I denied it. So it takes two to be in a domestic violence situation. You have to enable it, and you have to take responsibility. You don't not to blame yourself. There's a difference between blaming yourself and taking responsibility and saying, look, I'm with a violent man, but that's because I allow him. I allow him to hit me. And I've seen people. I've seen documentaries of people in America that live for years and years with violent men until at the end they end up killing them, and they just have so many opportunities to leave, and yet they go back again and again and again. And forgiveness is not what you should do. You should never forgive somebody who harms you. This is why I'm also very proud my country is fighting terrorism despite the whole world telling Israel, oh, just go in a ceasefire. This is exactly like domestic violence. that you allow somebody to do whatever they want, and you say, okay, I'm just going to forgive them. I'm going to try to make peace. You can't make peace with a violent person. A person that doesn't take responsibility, that blames you, the way the world blames us. They blame Israel for what they do, what they're doing to us. We are a minority, and yet we are the genocidal, right? We're 0.001%. And I feel in a way that this is the way I made peace with my domestic violence situation, that I'm accepting my identity as an Israeli Jewish person. I find, first of all, I'm a Jewish person, and as a Jewish person, I realize I live in a world that doesn't like us, that feels it's justifiable to kill us, to send rockets into our communities, and we shouldn't fight back. And this is how I was told. Whenever I complained about my ex-husband, I have to put up with him, go back to him, even by the Jewish community I was living in, because they were just so much into appeasing the other person and accepting violence as a part of life. And why should I? Why should I live in violence? Why should I raise children in a violent household? And of course it has its effects. When you raise children with violence, they're all going to be post-traumatic. Happy to say they're all in relationships that are not violent, as far as I know. They're with partners that are not violent in any way. And I'm very happy. And I think it's because they watched and observed and said, we don't want to live like this. We don't want to live like mommy and papi. We don't want to live in a situation where people scream at each other. We want to come home to peace. We want to raise pets. You cannot really raise pets in a violent household, which is why as soon as I got a dog, not this dog, I had another dog, I knew it was either the dog or my ex-husband, because I knew at one point he's gonna hurt the dog. He's gonna harm my dog, like the way he harmed me and the kids. But even worse, and it was a small dog, and the dog just didn't want him near me. He was just like, the dog, no way, don't come near my owner. I was feeding her, I was taking care of her, so she was protecting me. And as soon as the dog's behavior clarified for me that this guy is danger to me. If it wasn't clear before, because he was always like being very nice, he was not saying sorry, but he would just like, oh, let's go on vacation. We went on vacations, but then as soon as we got home, it was like worse and worse and worse. And at one point, I remember I was on vacation, and he was being so violent the night before. Got so stressed out because he didn't know how to deal with his emotions, so he couldn't say, I'm stressed out, I feel bad. He would just act out and started to throw things around, torture me. I can't even explain how that I'm not even the same person anymore. Because I remember at one point he came, he dragged me, and he I was reading, and he just couldn't stand it that I was reading, and he would just take a lamp and put it in my face and shove things at my face and throw my books and tear my books. I had a book about nonviolent communication, and he actually tore it apart. And he was just throwing it around. He couldn't stand to admit his faults. And then I ended up going on vacation on my own with 3 kids. And it was so difficult, because then I went to this place that he booked and paid for, and it was Christmas, and it was a small village, and everything was closed for Christmas, and I bought things, and then when I left, it was like, no, Shiva, don't do that. I had to clean up, and then I didn't clean up good enough, and then this man came, this old man, who was in charge of the apartments, and he yelled at me in German, because we lived in a German area, and it was like, Schweinerei, Schweinerei, pig-sty. And I really did my best, but I'm not a really good cleaner. There was no dishwasher, and I had 3 little kids to take care of. The kids were like 2, 4, 5 years old, and I had to watch my 2-year-old, and and for me it was more important to watch my child than clean, which is completely the wrong priority for that part of the world. It was, first of all, you clean, and then, your kids are not so important as cleanliness. And I don't know, I just didn't have domestic skills. And actually my ex-husband did end up doing domestic skills and screaming at me because I wasn't cleaning at the standard that he wanted. Right now I live in a house which is not clean at all, but you know why? It's my freedom. It's my freedom to live in a house where it's not clean. I mean, I do take out the trash, and I have animals, so I have to clean up and stuff, but I always wonder why I don't really clean. And the reason is because it's my freedom of choice to watch a movie or read a book, take out my dog for long walks. Where are you? She doesn't want to be filmed anymore. It's the way I am free to not clean up and yet not be screamed at and not have anybody. When I come home, there's nobody yelling at me. When I come home from work, I can relax. And when I lived with my ex-husband, I never worked, and I can't imagine going to work and coming home to somebody who yells at you and puts you down and tells you horrible things and tells you what a horrible person you are. So in a way, I've made peace with him, that I don't constantly hate him. I don't really hate him. I think I do feel sorry for him, but I feel sorry for myself more than I feel sorry for him. And this is the key of liberation. If you're experiencing domestic violence, feel sorry for yourself more than you feel sorry for the person who's hitting you and humiliating you and abusing you. Never feel sorry for the abuser more than you feel sorry for yourself. Because when you feel sorry for the abuser more than yourself, you're never going to get out of that situation. Love yourself more than you love the other person. Because if you don't love yourself, nobody else is going to love you. And you don't have to be in a relationship. It's okay to be alone. It's okay to feel lonely. And you don't need to be in a relationship. There's no need for it. You can watch romantic films about people in relationships, and it doesn't have to be you. And when you meet a good-looking person, you don't have to be in a relationship with them. And when you meet a person, listen to them. Listen to how they talk to you. Listen to how much you have in common, how much you really have in common, and be able to separate reality, what's really going on, than the reality you have in your mind. Because my ex-husband, I thought he was like the best person I've ever met. He had good qualities, but like his sense of humor, he had a sense of humor, but he couldn't laugh at himself. If you made a joke, he would just get so upset, get offended so easily, because he didn't have a sense of humor. A real sense of humor is the ability to laugh at yourself, to not take yourself too seriously. And he used to just, because he was not balanced, he couldn't make jokes, he couldn't laugh, he couldn't respect me. He was just so self-centered and narcissistic, and it was all about him and his needs. And the fact that he lives in a relationship doesn't mean that he's better than me. Because I used to think, how come he has a relationship? He's with the same woman for longer than we were married. But the reason is they don't live together. And the other reason is that, because they don't live together, she can just run away from him. And he knows that if he hits her, she'll be gone. And with me, because we were married and we had small children, he kind of felt that I was his prisoner. So that's the problem with domestic violence. When you have small children, you're really vulnerable. And when you're with an abuser, they know you're not going to leave, because where are you going to go with 3 kids? Where are you going to go? You're going to take them out of school? Where are you going to go? And the shelters, they're really not, where I lived, they were not suitable for a large family. There were maybe a woman with 1 child, and I also had pets. And where was I going to take my pets? So very soon after I got the dog, I realized, that's it. You got to get rid of him, because the sad statistics are that where there's domestic violence, there's no pets. The pets are dead. They're harmed. They're the first one to get abused. And Because, if he's going to abuse a human being, he's not going to think twice abusing an animal and taking it out on the animal. And so when I saw him drag my dog down the stairs, I said, that's it. This man is out of my life. This man is out of my life. He's never going to drag my puppy again. She was a small, helpless puppy and just dragged her down the stairs. And my kids were also, they're watching their puppy being dragged down the stairs, and they're like, why is he doing that? And then we went to a puppy school, and the man did the same. He would drag the dogs around, and my kids were horrified. And my dog actually ran away. The other puppies were accepting it, and my puppy ran away. And I said, I learned from my dog that I had not to get abused. The dog showed me that you shouldn't get abused, because sadly most dogs put up with abuse. That's why there's so many abused animals. But my dog, she was like, I'm running away. I'm not putting up with an abuser. And she started to growl at my ex-husband. She didn't accept his violence. And then I learned from my dog not to accept violence. And I think if I could attribute the reason why I was able to walk away is because I finally had somebody who was always going to be was always going to be by my side, was always going to stick out for me. And adopting that puppy was the best decision I ever made. And it's funny because I adopted this dog, and I wanted certain qualities. I wanted her to be good with kids so I can work with kids and dogs. But you know what her number one quality is? She's a guard dog. She is a guard dog, and she doesn't let anybody near me. And she's going to protect me, and I feel protected. I know that if anybody comes into my home, she's going to attack them, whether they're dangerous or not. She's a guard dog, right, Shiva? That's what you are. And I'm really thankful for the Bedouins that I was able to adopt my dog from them. And for SOS Animal Shelter, if you want to donate, please donate to SOS Animal Shelter. And there is a program in Israel called Michal's Dogs for a woman, named after a social worker. A social worker was murdered by her husband, and her sister set up this dog protective service, and they train dogs to protect women against a violent partner. These are Belgian Shepherds. They're the same dogs used by the army, and they protect their women because that's the only thing that's going to protect them, really. Friends are not going to be there. People are going to bail out on them. Social workers are not going to help them. The only thing that's going to help you is a dog. But make sure your dogs are not in harm's way, because violent men can also harm dogs. But these dogs are Belgian Shepherds. They will lunge at a man who's she explained to me, this dog is just been trained that anytime this guy comes near her or her child, the dog is going to attack them. So donate to these programs. There are not enough programs. And there's too many women that are in domestic violence situations. And I think about that my country is in a domestic violence situation, and we're told we're not allowed to fight back. We're told ceasefire. And this is the same thing I experienced as a woman. I was told not to fight back. I was told to stay. I was told to make peace with my abuser. And this is what my country is being told. So I think I'm the right person to talk to people in a domestic violence situation, and also to speak to people who don't understand what we're going through in Israel. We are being abused by our terrorist neighbors, and we are fighting back. And I'm really happy we have dogs. The city has the most dog per person in the world, and the reason is we're so post-traumatic. We've lived through so many rocket attacks. So, just 7 years I've been back in Israel. There've been, 2 wars? This is the second one. Last time I had 2 dogs I used to run to the bomb shelter with. And nobody should have to live like this. Nobody should have to live in a situation where you don't feel safe to be at home. Here I am, Saturday night. I don't feel like staying at home, waiting for the siren. So I'm coming here to the bomb shelter here. Not all bomb shelters look like that. The bomb shelter in my building, you can't stay there too long. It doesn't have ventilation. This one is amazing, but it's because the AA has been taking care of it for the community and for themselves. I think it's a wonderful program. If you're experiencing addiction to drugs or alcohol, or to, I believe my addiction was to toxic people, whether it's my own family. There's not AA for that. There's emotional AA, like it's called Emotional Anonymous, but I think there should be a 12-step program, how to get out of domestic violence, how to get out of relationship with toxic people, whether it's your family, your parents, your whatever. You know, don't accept violence from anyone. And the way to get out of it is, my way was through a dog. Because I found that I didn't have a support system. And sadly, you shouldn't expect people that are so-called professionals to help you. The only person who can help you is yourself, making a decision to love yourself more than you love your abuser, to end the violence and abuse against you, to decide that you didn't come to this world to be abused. Nobody should have to go to sleep crying. Nobody should go to sleep in fear. Nobody should have to feel danger in their own home. I remember I used to lie in my bed with my blanket over my head, just saying, oh, please, please let this go away. And it doesn't go away unless you do something about it. Peace, light, and love, everyone. And I'm really grateful for dogs, and adopt a dog from a shelter today. Get out of abusive relationship. And even if you're not, if you know somebody who's in an abusive relationship, realize that it's very difficult to get them out of it. And the only way to get them out of it is by consistently being there for them, physically being there. Don't disconnect, don't bail out on them. That's the last thing they need. Be physically in their lives. Call them, ask them how they're doing, and remind them that they deserve to be loved. That's what we need. Also, as a country, we need to be reminded that we deserve to be loved.